Hey, my friends, it's another Friday and another day to build wins together. And as you know, we go all over the spectrum. We have authors, we have speakers, we have motivational people, and we have people from the industry. And that's exactly where we're going today. We're going with a guy that I've known for several years now, Bill Bowser. And Bill is the owner of Scott Systems and the manufacturer of the post-rec pole barn shelving. Easy for me to say. And we're going to chat with Bill today for a little bit about how he developed it, why he developed it, how it works, where it goes, how to get them. Everything you need to know. Don't go away, but be right back with Bill. There he is. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Randy. How about yourself?
It'd be tough to be any better. If I was Bill Bowser selling post racks, maybe I'd be better, but next best thing.
I'd be better if I had all the frequent flyer miles that you have.
Easy for you to say. Well, I do, and I was bragging to my wife one day about my Delta status and my Hilton Diamond status and being Mr. Big Shot, and she goes, "You do know you paid for all that, right?" Leave it.
Unfortunately, that's the truth.
Leave it to her to bring me down, but that's okay. So, well, welcome. Thank you for being on. I've been looking forward to chatting with you. We've known each other for a lot of years, and I just think it's great we get to talk and introduce the post rack system to all our friends out there.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Randy, and you bet. It's been a wonderful journey, and you've been a great mentor along the way, and have provided me and our team with some great insight. And we're more than honored to be on here and show off this world-class bracket.
Oh, great. So Bill, let's give us a little bit of history of who Bill is. I know I've met many a time your lovely wife, Kim. Give us a little bit of story about, I know you're a vet. I think that's important. Give us a little history of you before we get started. I'd like people to know who you are a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I spent 23 years on active duty in the Army Medical Corps, and was recruited out to come out here to the Detroit area and work for Henry Ford Health System. And I spent the next 15 years there as their director for occupational medicine and workplace injuries. And a fella that I rode Harley Davidsons with, believe it or not, was a construction man. He had been a superintendent and always involved in the trades throughout his entire life. He had developed a scaffolding apparatus that actually hooked to the frame of a building or to the structure itself. And every time we would ride motorcycles, when we would stop, he'd want to talk to me about this bracket. Well, having spent 40 years in medicine and having really very limited or no knowledge of the industry, it would come to a point where I didn't want to stop the motorcycles to even take a pee break. I'd rather pee my pants. But in any case, finally he had come to me one time and said, "Bill, listen, I think you're a man of integrity, and I think that you're a world-class guy. I would give you half of my patent if you would develop this the rest of the way and take it to market." And so we shook on it. I finished my career at Henry Ford, went in and put in my retirement stuff, and we started to work on this full-time in 2014. We developed it. We had staged it. We brought the people in from MIOSHA because obviously from my medical background, I knew that these were safety concerns that we needed to check on it. As the individual from MIOSHA showed up to give this a rigorous test from safety, he had said in a comment that in the 26 years he had been providing safety for the state of Michigan, this was the best thing he'd ever seen. So we knew that we were onto something, and we started to take it to some shows. And over the course of 2014, it was picked by the National Home Builders Association as the safety product of the year.
Wow.
We were brought out to Las Vegas, and, of course, I thought we had hit a home run and that we would be living in Tahiti by now. No doubt about it. But unfortunately, in that world of construction and the demographics of the people who are the framers of the homes and the roofers, safety is not paramount. It's paramount in conversations at OSHA level and MyOSHA and the rest of the state regulators, but it's not paramount on the ground. And because of the diversity or the disparity, many of these states through budget cuts have 5, 6 inspectors. So the state of Michigan, for example, has 6 MyOSHA enforcement agents. One of them's in the UP. Well, that's a lot of land grab for an OSHA inspector to show up on general contractors. So in any case, we still felt pretty confident. We started to move it forward, and we were at a show in Novi, Michigan. And in Novi, Michigan, a gentleman walked by and said, you know something? If you could create something that would work in a pole barn, they've been being built for 100 years, and no one's ever used the vertical space inside of a building. And we debuted it at Nashville at the National Frame Builders Association. And you could just tell a lot of the industry leaders, industry giants that walk by were like, dang, I wish I would have thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I were very deeply involved at that point. That's when, we had the pleasure of meeting some of your colleagues and moving it forward in a bigger scale. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in, you have to be mindful of cost.
Right.
And I had made a point to Lloyd, and I had given him my word. And obviously, being a 23-year Army veteran fighting for this country, I believe in the United States. Mm-hmm. So no matter what, the agreement was this would never be outsourced. This would be, to the best of our abilities, 100% USA sourced materials. It would be built by American workers and assembled by American workers. And that, to this day, has stayed consistent. They're built in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Okay. And did you, when you started out, so this bracket, I've seen the bracket, I'm well familiar with it. You've got it sized now for pretty much any size pole, laminated poles, glue lams, nail lams, Salason. Tell us a little bit about where it's used, how it's used, sizes, some of those kind of things, Bill.
I will. And well, first, let me just take one step back. So then we joined forces with the folks at Wick Lumber. And
okay.
We had met some of the leaders up there as we came out with some prototypes. And we learned what we didn't know from their expertise and just being up in that presence. We wanted to take it a step farther. So we took it to the University of Wisconsin School of Engineering and Building Materials. And we allowed them to take a look at it. And that all really kind of culminated in the product that we have today. And as you say, no two barns are built exactly the same. I don't know if you can see it, mm-hmm. but it's a relatively heavy duty structure that has the ability to be adjusted at the column so that it can work with 6x6s, traditional pole barn lumber, but nowadays 3-ply and 4-ply lumber that's just as easily obtained, and as many buildings are built to do that. On the size, it's set to be 2 foot out from your column, which in all a sense will give you approximately 29 or 30 inches back to your metal.
Okay.
And the reason it was done, and then in our safety literature of the product, we asked that people don't go above the halfway point because we don't want any deflection of those columns as a result of overloading. So coming out only 2 foot and staying below the halfway point always keeps the load going towards the ground and not on an inward motion.
So a lot of safety has been, with your background in safety, obviously this is not only a very usable product from a utilitarian standpoint, but it's safe, it's effective, and that's a good thing, because a lot of people put product out that, like you said earlier, they don't always think about safety, and I think it's pretty important that you did that.
And we spoke to a lot of different consultants that were very familiar with engineering and different things that go on in the industry. And we rate this for each bracket for 750 pounds. But as you'll see on our website, postrack.com, that we tested it at Mezzamino, Wisconsin at Wick Lumber on a temporary suspended apparatus, and we had almost 3,000 pounds across the 10-foot span with less than an inch of deflection. But as you and I know, and as long as we've lived life, we say 750, which means the guy getting it is probably a crafty rascal, and he's going to say, yeah, it can hold 2,000.
Right.
Grown
Right.
men don't listen to nothing. So,
Right.
but I mean, it's 19 pounds of 12 gauge steel. It's professionally robotically welded. It's powder coated for the elements. And the only thing that from time to time, after selling tens of thousands of these, the only comments that we've ever gotten back is when some fellas have taken shortcuts, not pre-drilled the holes, they'll spin the head of a nut off.
Hmm.
There's never been one discussion with any client, and I'm pretty hands-on with all of the people we sell these to and thanking them, that we've ever heard of one issue on one column across the country. And we've sold them in all, I should say 49 states. Got myself into a huge trouble one time with a fella that wanted them from Hawaii and didn't realize all of the logistics of the West Coast operation. Oh. And I had to decline that sale just because it was way too costly.
Right. Yeah, getting them over. So a question, and Wes brought this up, is there, and I know the answer to this, but I'll ask you the question. This is a freestanding, if you want to call it, bracket. So there's no angle bracing that needs to come from the outer edge of the bracket back to the building to take up space. I mean, it's literally just the arm that sticks out only.
Correct.
And so it gives you full, complete use of that space, correct?
Well, the two biggest advantages is that, I mean, many people who purchase these are trying to clear a floor so they don't have to buy another pole barn because they filled it up. They've outgrown their basement, their garage, filled up their pole barn, and now they're looking for space. And number two, removing them 6 lag screws, there's 2.5-inch galvanized, lag screws. You can move this at any time you want.
Sure.
So, I mean, it gives you great versatility where maybe you start out with a workbench and decide, well, you know what, I want to move into a different configuration, or now I got a new lawn tractor. You have full capacity underneath your workbench, underneath any of your shelving.
And end walls as well as side walls, there's no limitation there. You can go, or these aren't a sidewall application only, correct? You can put them on the end wall of the building?
Any wall. And now we've even had customers over the years, and you can see it depicted, where they've been crafty and they've diagonaled their wood and they went into corners.
Okay.
So they don't have to just go in one length. They can come around the corner. They just have to diagonal the lumber.
Gotcha. So you've had these out on the market how long now, Bill?
2015 at that
15.
Nashville show was the debut, and it was the innovative product of the show at the National Pole Barn. Yep.
I think you and I hung out down there with your lovely wife, Kim. Yes, we did. Yep. Yes. So as you've moved forward from that point, it's a powder coated bracket. You've got it available in some lumber chains around the country. Post frame builders like Wick Buildings, and people are using them. No? Okay.
We did have a relationship and still do have kind of a loose relationship with John Menard or Menards.
Okay.
But other than that, one of the things that has been very difficult is the 2-step distribution.
Right.
You and I suffered through that right early on. It was a lesson learned. Obviously, totally understand the financial dynamics of life, and everybody needs to make money. This thing, unfortunately, I think it's self-priced out when people are not actually looking at a shelving system and then looking at ours and adding up the cost. I think they're just looking at, holy mackerel, bracket cost X number of dollars, way too expensive, but they're not looking at the versatility, the lack of taking up floor space, and really the product itself. I think it's more like a gut thing when you get to the $100 mark and above.
Hmm. Okay. So right now you'd buy the product either off your website. How would people get a hold of the Pulse Rack? Let's just
Yep,
talk about how that's happened.
they would be purchasing on there. They're also listed on Amazon. They're listed on eBay and Walmart, and there. And like I said, at Menards, the problem that we experienced a little bit with Menards, they change buyers quite often. And that's a beautiful thing. People move up. But we could never convince the senior leadership. We're in the running a couple of times to put these on display.
Okay.
I mean, you have to have big clout and big numbers to convince the big powers to say, good idea, put these in our rooms so people can look at them.
Mm-hmm. So now people can go to the website or Amazon, Walmart, any of the other locations that you mentioned, and just buy them online.
Yep.
Pay the freight, have them shipped anywhere.
The freight is paid if they purchase more than 10. I pay the freight because me and the people at UPS are totally in love with one another.
Perfect.
And I give 10% back to any veteran in the United States.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that's an instant savings once they click the buy button and we know that they are a veteran of any service. I immediately Kim refunds them 10%.
Oh, nice. That's a great deal. That's well done. I like that. You and I've talked a long time, and my oldest son's a vet, and I'm a big supporter of the vet. And you talked about that earlier, and I was remiss earlier not saying it, but thank you for your 23 years of service, by the way.
You betcha.
So you've been doing this for quite some time. You're doing it all over the U.S. and everywhere but Hawaii, obviously, because that's
right.
so hard. What will you be at any of the trade shows or anything showing the product anymore? Or does it make more sense just to do the online presence? And
well, I think that it makes a lot of sense. That experience at Nashville was wonderful, but I think that it was my initial kind of trying to look at the finances of it. And as we've experienced all of these last couple of years of the increases in lumber, the increases in steel, obviously people having difficulty finding help, which means labor costs are going up. It's raised the price where when we left Nashville, we had a stack of cards and people get back from them shows and are excited and they wind down and then they get back into their businesses and there's not always time for follow-up. And as much as we tried to follow up with all of them that seemed to be incredibly interested, it just didn't seem that we got a great ROI on the shows to have a booth. We're a small company. There's three of us. There's me. There's as a mouthpiece. There's my wife, the brains of the operation. And there's Elliot, another veteran, and, my teammate in Wisconsin who runs the warehouse.
Okay. So you're having the product, it's manufactured. Obviously, you own the patent to this thing. It's being manufactured, and then you store them in a warehouse, and will typically ship out of the warehouse. That's what Elliot does, correct?
Right. Okay. And that usually is within 24 hours of placing an order.
That's pretty fast.
Oh,
and so let's go back to the sizing again, because I got to profess that I don't remember this, so I'm going to ask. But the length out, the 24 inches nominally, that's not adjustable. That is the length. There's one size only, correct?
Correct.
Is there different columns, or do you adjust for the column spacing on the job? So in other words, there's one SKU and one SKU only. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's only one SKU, and that adjusts from 3.5 to 6 1/4 to fit those dimensional sizes.
Perfect. So
and the 24-inch length is correct. Now, where you do have a variable is in lumber usage. On each side, it's its own receiver. So it can be started and stopped at any point. Don't have a left or a right or a center. It's all
Okay.
universal. There's a 5-inch cavity, and originally that 5-inch cavity was built for 4 2x4s on side and 2 2x12s to lay on the top.
Okay.
Well, as dimensional lumber has gotten higher in price and we've been tipped off by customers, you can use 2x6s, plane them down to 4.5, and then use 1/2-inch OSB on the top as long as that aesthetic suits you well. And by
Okay.
doing it that way, if you're on 8-foot centers, you can get 2 tops out of every sheet and save yourself a few bucks.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you can obviously you're 29 inches if you go all the way back to the wall, so you can either just leave that space behind that gap, if you will, behind the between the poles, or you could actually fill that in if you wanted to, or no.
Yeah, people can fill it in. I mean, they put a little wood
Hmm.
chuck or something and put a board that's so that it's
Yeah.
flush.
Yeah, it's a great product. We've looked at them numerous times together, and the thing I like about the product, it really does make that, whether it's a brand new pole building or an existing barn that you're trying to get up stuff off the floor. Just think about it. We know that most buildings, there's one law that always exists in building a building, right? Is as soon as it's built, it's too small, and people fill them with stuff, right? And this is a great way to use some of that that vertical space, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I mean, in the applications, the very first day that we left Wick, we went and seen a concrete contractor in Watertown, Wisconsin. We were all kind of a little bit pins and needles. We had 50 brackets done, first production. We got out there, we put a couple of them up. He comes zipping into the building with a skid loader and put a 600-pound bucket on. And we just this was before we did the testing at Wick.
Oh
And
boy.
we just kind of and it didn't move a millimeter.
Hmm.
And then the gentleman gave us a wonderful, not so good problem. He bought our complete inventory.
Can't complain with that, right?
Can't complain, but then we were out of stock as more people wanted to buy.
Well,
So we had to wait our turn at manufacturing. But those pictures are depicted on the website. Those are 88-foot runs.
that's so right there. So that's a good pick right there, showing the application. So you're putting the 2x in and then the 2x12s on top, or as you said, you could put plywood top if you want to.
Right. And see,
Depending
it's
on
glued and screwed, and then that becomes one solid cradle.
Mm-hmm.
So at any point, because there's a fastener series underneath where they can keep it secured, but it's already relatively secure. And say that this gentleman or woman, building owner, wanted it to go up or down because of whatever need they had, they would just lift that cradle out, move the brackets, and re-put the cradle in, because between every 2 columns, it's usually going to be dimensionally the same distance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just if you switch columns, sometimes the carpenters were out there for whatever reason, maybe one's 7-11, the other one's 8-1, just a little bit off. So the cradle won't always be universal unless it's in that same series.
Right. So you could raise it or lower it, and it wouldn't have any effect. But between poles, if you moved it, depending on the accuracy of the construction, it may or may not be an issue.
Right.
Gotcha. So as we sort of what have we not talked about, Bill? The should ask question that Wes always reminds me I forget to ask sometimes. But what haven't we talked about? Let's take a couple minutes and tell people whatever they need to know to make a buying decision to buy Post Rack from Bill Bowser.
Well, I think that we've covered a lot of the subjects, a little bit of the history of where it came from. I think that some of the things that we've heard along the way about the incredible strength, about the product itself, the quality, we ask, and those are also listed on our website of, I don't want to be the determiner. I don't want to try to sell somebody something that they don't want. If they need pallet racking in their pole barn, I'm all for it. That's what you need. If you need a different type of a storage system, you need a good solid workbench. This can't be replicated in the country for the cost. We also added a couple other features that I don't know if you're aware of. Up here at the front of the bracket, there's two 5/16" pre-drilled holes.
Okay.
And those true holes were the result of a gentleman that owned a company, a plumbing company, and he had flat stock, or he had material, rolling material, and our shelf creates a flat surface. So by adding them two, they can just bolt themselves in a flat stock piece of metal, and they have a container, and they can hold all of that, or they can hold stacked lumber or whatever it is. Well, as we went on, people up here in the north could hook a pulley and hold their deer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, or slaughter a hog in the back warehouse, right?
That's correct. Only your imagination limits you on what those two holes could be used for.
There you go. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, I can tell people as I've said, no two finer folks than you and Kim. I don't think I've ever met Elliot. I think he and I may have talked on the phone once or twice, maybe in the past. But fine folks, and I know one thing: if it's a Bill Bowser and a Kim Bowser and an Elliot produced product, it's going to be first class. That's one thing I know for a fact. So.
Well, we really tried to make sure, when early on, like I said, through the safety testing, through the testing up at WIC. And what's kind of funny is that, you and I obviously know all of the big vendors in the pole barn, Hanson, Morton, Cleary. Every one of those guys, they know this is a dynamite product. They're in every one of their barns, not every one of their barns, but they're in a lot of their barns. But the fact is that it's really just an economical thing. And I think early on, to be honest with you, it was kind of a test. Are Bill and Kim a flash in the pan? Is this thing really going to stand up? We continually go back to our customers and say, hey, can you tell us how your brackets are performing? And it has been absolutely superb.
Awesome.
We have a gentleman, Randy, that, where Gun Casino is over
on
the side. Yep. A gentleman over there is in possession of more than $1 million Harley collection.
Wow.
These brackets are holding up a good part of them Harleys.
Oh, really? Okay.
He has them stored in special trays on our brackets on the walls.
Oh, no kidding.
So, I mean, it's really whatever. Even when people come in and they've had their barns insulated, there's an opportunity, if it's thought through beforehand, they can have these shelves already pre-positioned.
Okay.
A little bit more difficult once all the insulation and the wainscot or whatever the material on the outside is, just because each side has two lag screws.
Right.
So once it's up, you'd have to be doing a lot of bending and maneuvering, and that's just not really, it's already done.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So bottom line then is they can go to postrack.com, or they can go on Amazon and just Google PostRack and order product. Within 24 hours it's shipped, and they're by the weekend they're storing product. You can't get any better than that, right?
We actually send a lot up your way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people up in the Traverse City that in that arena up there that we've sent a lot of brackets to.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Maybe you'll send a few more.
I can't thank you enough.
Well, Bill, what else we got? Otherwise, I appreciate your time, and get a hold of Bill. Postrack.com, man. I mean, this is I've been in the post frame industry. Well, I'm not going to say how long, because it's been forever. And this is one of those really, really cool, innovative products that just makes a lot of sense. So get a hold of postrack.com, get a hold of Bill, Kim, Elliot, and hey, make that pole barn more useful, right?
You betcha. We'll do everything we can to assist in their needs.
I know you will. Bill, I appreciate it, my friend.
You bet you. Thank you, Randy. Great to see you.
You too. Cheers, my buddy. All right. All right, there you go. You know how to get a hold of Bill now. You can get a hold of him at post-rack.com, I think is correct, or on Amazon, Walmart, and check them out and give them a shot if it makes some sense for you. So that is it for today. We will be back next week with the Building Wins. We'll be announcing who that guest is shortly. But until then, remember this: you get one go around. So live it, love it, own it. Love what you do and do what you love. And as I always love to say, and I like to say it better than I can write it because I should be a doctor, but I'm not smart enough. Make today your best day ever. Until tomorrow. Cheers, my friends.